Hi, and welcome to Rise, Heal, and Grow. I'm Leah M. Hill. This show is a podcast production of Apollo Sunrise Center, which is a health, wellness, and spiritual retreat center in Merrimack, Massachusetts. On this show, we shine the light on those who nurture wellness and inspire positive change. My guest today is Áine Greaney. She is an Irish-born writer, teacher, and an advocate for using words as a path to wellness. Welcome, Áine.
Thank you, Leah. It's lovely to be here.
Oh, it's so good to have you.
For having me.
I cannot wait to talk about your writing and what you do on helping people on their path to wellness, because that's something I'm really interested in myself. And but I do want to first start off with where you got started with writing. You were pretty young, weren't you?
Yes, I was a child reader, for starters.
A reader,
okay. Went to secondary school, which would be equivalent to middle high school in this country.
Okay.
And I went to a convent school, which is not that special, really. It's the default school. It's,
okay, so convent school in our world is not usual. It's something very different. We think of becoming a nun.
Oh, no.
But it is a Catholic school.
Catholic school.
That you went to, which is the norm.
That's the norm, and at the time, the government, left the running of the schools to the Catholic Church. It's not like that in Ireland now, and my nieces go to quite a different school.
I didn't know that. Okay.
But back in my day, as we say, that was the default, and it was a very small town school, and regardless of denomination or who was running it, I'm not a great group or herd mentality person. That's not my strength.
Okay.
So the kind of trooping from classroom to classroom, all wearing the same uniform.
Oh, yeah.
Getting into trouble for things like wearing the wrong shoes indoors versus outdoors.
But not acting out. You were getting into trouble for wearing the wrong shoes. Okay.
I'm not making this up. And then the noise of the school bus, if you've ridden a school bus to and from school, it was awful for me. I just hated it.
Was it like yelling and screaming and fighting? Yes.
And the teasing each other and the sheer length of it. So by the time I would get home from school, in the afternoon, I would be exhausted, and not necessarily physically exhausted, but just mentally worn out.
Oh, gosh.
So I would be upstairs in my family home doing homework, and instead I would be writing in a small, I've seen them in drugstores here, those little composition notebooks, the small mini ones.
Yep.
And I remember, I didn't know much back then, but I remember thinking, I feel a little better. I feel a bit more relaxed.
Oh.
And
by
then
just writing?
Just from sitting
and writing.
Dumping, rage paging. I call it rage paging.
Yeah.
And then the other thing about it I remember was, this is mine.
Yeah.
Like, this is my space. I don't think I was clever enough to word it that way at the time in my little...
Well, you were young.
I was young.
You were what, like a teenager, early teens?
13, 14.
Yeah, 13, 14.
And I remember I can be anybody I want in this cheap notebook. Anybody I want.
Right.
I don't have to put on the mask that you had to wear at school to be a good girl. And I remember loving it, and it became a practice almost every evening,
Wow.
Yeah, and I remember just, I feel better now. And then, you mean I can write anything I want? So this is...
I like the rage page idea, because it sounds like that's what it was. Like you come home from school, you have this very difficult experience with the other students and trying to get along with everybody and trying to figure out how you're supposed to dress and what shoes to wear. And then you can get home, first give yourself that time to actually write it all down, like all the things you would want to say that wouldn't have been maybe polite or looked well upon at the time. But then it sounds like you evolved from that and transitioned into, I can make up my stories. Were you making up stories? And
not really at the time. I read a lot of stories, some of which were a little beyond my age and I shouldn't have been reading.
Oh, okay.
But it was just this sense of emotional release and this space that I could name and then in which I had some sovereignty and agency. I think that was the specialness of it for me. And I've always loved language. My father was bilingual. We were by the time we were out of school, we were all bilingual.
Okay.
And then I was also learning French in school and loved it. So I would switch. I remember in my little journal, I would switch back and forth between the 3 languages.
Oh my gosh, that's much more mature for a lot of young kids to do, to be able to do. Oh
well,
my
I don't know if
gosh.
that was a stunt so that nobody could read my thoughts.
Oh, that's why.
But I remember playing with language and just, this was my buzz. Like, I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Yeah, and it sounds like it was therapy for you that really helped get you through and cope with those very difficult times. Because you consider yourself a natural introvert, which you said you weren't familiar with, and you're from Ireland. That wasn't a term that you used there.
I never heard it until I was here in the U.S., and I started thinking about going back to graduate school, as a grown-up, as an adult. Mm-hmm. And I went to have one of those personality tests because I didn't want to. It's expensive, and I didn't want to spend money on something that would be a mismatch. And when this career advisor said, "Whoa, you're off the charts in the introvert extrovert," and I didn't even know what it meant.
Oh no!
But I learned, and Susan Cain's book helps. Is a great primer on that introvert extrovert chart. Mm-hmm. And actually, I thought of myself back there in my bedroom as a 13, 14-year-old, and where. Society tends to favor the smiley child and the outgoing child, the sporty child.
Yes, and that goes across cultures, I think. Yes,
it does.
Yes.
And I could put on the smiley, but it would exhaust me.
Yeah.
Really exhaust me.
That's an introvert.
That's an introvert, yeah.
Which I can hear, I totally identify with that as well. I've, always known that I was an introvert. I loved reading, like you said. I loved making up stories. I probably wasn't writing as prolifically as you were, but I loved making up stories where I can control what was happening. It sounds like that's what you like too. And I always realized that I got rejuvenated my energy from being alone rather than being with people. If I'm at a party for too long, I just shut down. I cannot, I get drained and I can't do it. So is that the experience for you as well?
Yes, and the one-on-one, I tend to have close, thank God, long-term friends versus the group. Again, parties for me, it takes me a full day to recover.
Yeah, I totally get that. I totally get that. Yes, definitely. When you feel like you have to be on constantly, and then it's very draining for you. So that is a classic introvert right there.
And actually, Leah, one of the things recently I went down my basement and I unearthed a box of old journals. Mm-hmm. And that theme ran through them all the way from my young days to now.
Wow. In your journals, you can see the pattern.
Of the real self, the inner self, the contemplative self versus the self we present to the world, because that's what we've been asked to do.
Yeah.
Nobody ever job interviewed somebody and said, "Oh, I think I'll hire that introvert." Give her the corner office.
Yeah, I can imagine that was difficult. But that's fantastic that you were able to see that pattern now, over the years of having those journals over the years, and that you were able to see that that really helped you identify your authentic self, right?
Yes.
Because as you're growing up, right, you don't know kind of who you are all the time because you're so influenced by whatever's going on in school or with your friends. And then you were able to identify that writing was a way for you to find that, to find your authentic self.
Yeah.
I love that because some people never do find it.
Well, this is true,
Yeah.
That's a scary prospect.
Right. So then from this rural Irish area that you grew up in, you went to college in Dublin.
Yeah. Bit of a switch.
That's a bit of a switch. So how did you cope with that? That's a huge transition.
It was huge, and it was the rural-urban divide. And back then, without a motorway system, it was a divide geographically and also behaviorally. There was just country people were country people and town and city people were city people. And often, stand-up comics would mimic our accents and make fun of us.
Really?
Yeah.
Because there was such a divide.
Back then it was, not so much now, because also, unfortunately, COVID made people move and they can work anywhere now.
Oh, okay. But so it was more about what people were doing during the day and going into the city.
Businesses, the media, the government organizations were all centered in the capital.
Right.
You know, so off I went, and I was in a small college. It was a small teacher education liberal arts college in a very upmarket neighborhood, Seaside, actually.
Oh, Seaside, okay.
And I was very young as well. A big mistake is that I was more than a year younger than the other students.
Oh, really?
Yeah, in Ireland, you had to be 17 to go to college. I made it by 12 hours.
Wow, that's tough then.
17
so
the
you feel
day
like you're
before.
going into college and you've already, like, you
Yeah.
feel like you're already not, like you
You're
said,
not
you
up-
weren't,
yeah,
you're
you're-
not up to the par or whatever.
You're just
You're-
too young.
Yeah.
And I didn't know that at the time, but and there was so much to adjust to. Like now, I had to run my own schedule, and I could wear any kind of shoes I wanted. But I remember the running of your own lecture schedule, just the food in the cafeteria alone,
that you get to choose.
the dormitory. You're suddenly in kind of shared space with people whom you don't know. We did have single occupancy dorms, thank God.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember, I haven't shared this much, but I actually got a rash. I got this weird rash the first few weeks in college, and I didn't know what it was. I thought it was the strange surroundings or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would be that bright, smiley student on the outside and trying to navigate, my schedule and all these new people. Massive imposter syndrome. And then once I closed that dorm door behind me, there was quite a different person behind that door. Yeah. So I did what I knew how to do.
Yeah, which was right.
Took out a notebook.
Right.
And I remember it became a kind of a secular form of prayer that I would calm down, that my rash would go away because, I tried to conceal it with high-neck sweatshirts. And,
Sure.
And that I would just not stop feeling so imposter-y and overwhelmed by it all.
Because now you can be your authentic self.
Sitting at that little desk in my dorm room.
Wow.
And
surrounded by this big city.
Big city and girls who I assumed were, much smarter than me, even though we all got into the same college.
Right,
so,
right. But you felt that because you were a little younger.
I was younger,
maybe.
Younger and more rural than everybody else. They were a little more sophisticated than me. Or maybe they weren't, I don't know.
Right. That was your perception.
That was my perception.
So when you were doing this writing as your own therapy to discover your authentic self, was it still the this is how I feel? Were you writing like your emotions and this is how I feel, and then taking it from there? Like how did the stories spur from that point?
I think I was sort of just spilling out how confused I felt, how overwhelmed I felt.
Yeah.
And then I also began kind of making lists of, I hope that I was mature enough at the time, what one thing could I fix here? And get a handle on. And that I didn't know, of course, when I was sitting at that little desk in that dorm room, I didn't know that, several years later in a place called America, in a state called
where you would be, right?
Texas, there would be the first American clinical study that would bear out. Actually, that was done on freshman college students.
Really?
Yeah, Dr.
Wow.
James Pennebaker, his first study was with freshman college students. Now, I didn't know this because it hadn't happened yet, nor had I read about it. And it was the first clinical study on expressive writing, and he obviously had a control group and a study group. And the ones that were encouraged to write down their feelings and how they felt and about their past and about their childhoods, they had fewer visits to the doctor or to the medical center on campus, the health center on campus, and they did better over a longer term.
Really?
Now, I didn't know that at the time, but it's interesting that his study group were freshman students.
Yeah. I remember my freshman year in college, and in America it was the same thing. It was, even though I went to a pretty large high school, still going to college that was huge in the city of Boston, not knowing anyone, like you said, and being an introvert like you. And I didn't have the luxury of having my own dorm room. I had to share. So that was that was a little tough too, and getting to know people and everything. But you get through it, and that was the experience. But I do remember like you said, the cafeteria and all the food. And I was like, oh, I'll just have ice cream for dinner instead, because it's here
And
it's
French
available.
fries.
And French fries. That was a big one.
That was amazing to me.
Pizza and French fries, yeah.
We didn't have pizza, but, fried fish on Friday and
Yeah.
French fries and basically food that we hadn't had at home. And
Right.
yes, I did gain weight.
Yeah, I think, well, that's why, I don't know if you have that phrase in Ireland, but we have the freshman 15, which means when you're a freshman, you put on 15 pounds because of that.
I did.
I did too. Plus, I had a short stint where I worked at Mrs. Fields Cookies, and that was that was even worse. Yeah, that was even worse. But anyways, back to your writing. I do want to talk about the wellness writing that you do. If you can explain what that is and the difference between that and creative writing.
Yeah, like the wellness writing it's almost the same as journaling, and I get asked that a lot, Leah. Well, I've kept a journal all my life. Is that expressive writing? Is that wellness writing? And it is. There's a small little difference, again, going back to Mr. Pennebaker in Texas with his freshman college students. Mm-hmm. After the first rage page or the spilling your guts on the page, he encouraged the participants and students to then add a little cognitive dimension to it. Well, what could I do better? Are there resources that have worked for me in the past and that I could call upon them now? A little figuring out part
of yourself.
Right. What worked for me in the past? Have I felt like this in the past before? And what worked then? Could this apply here in these new surroundings? Yeah. And actually, there's a wonderful video interview with Dr. Atul Gawande, the famous doctor, and he expresses this really well. That every weekend, on a busy schedule as a surgeon, and that he sits down and says, what could I have done better this week?
Wow.
What can I do better next week? What went well, what didn't? It's a lovely short video. It's easy to find online.
Yeah, I'll have to look for it.
So that's kind of wellness writing. It's not that you wouldn't spend a lot of time just getting your thoughts and feelings down on the page.
Right.
Or what they call name it to tame it. When you name it, you get some kind of agency over it.
Like power over
it.
Right.
But then you can kind of transition over into brainstorming, solution searching, solution finding. Yeah. Creative writing, by contrast, and there are no, the thing about writing for wellness is there are no rules and there is no goal except to feel better and to visit yourself every day. Whereas for creative writing, there's a standard. I often say it's like cookies. You can't make all the wild and wonderful cookies till you know how to make a basic sugar cookie.
Oh, that's true. Okay.
So as a creative writer, there's sugar cookies to learn about.
Yes. You have to get the structure and all that down first.
The conventions of your genre.
Okay.
There are no conventions in wellness writing. You can do bullet lists, you can do brainstorming, you can work a keyboard, you can tell. I actually had a student who was a physician out on the West Coast, and she would just record stories into her phone because she was so busy she didn't have time to sit and write them.
Oh, right.
So there are no conventions.
That's amazing, because I think, I've been a journaler for many years, probably since I was a teenager, early teens as well, and I never thought of that, of like going to myself and asking myself for the solution, for the answers. I would do the rage page, as you call them. I would do the, this is what happened. And I did see patterns, though, like you said, when you go back and I'm like, okay, that's the same thing coming into my life over and over again. But I never thought that I could sort of be my own therapist or starting that process of saying, what can I have done differently here, as opposed to what do I want to be different about my life. That's what I was writing. I don't like this. I'm not happy with this. But this is what I want to be different. But what you're talking about is how to have that personal stake in it and initiate your own change in your own life.
And then check back with yourself. And it's not that we'll call them the rage pages aren't necessary. They are. Name it to tame it. Again, what's bugging me here? Why does that person at work push my buttons? Is it about another relationship that I have that's got nothing to do with work? What is going on here? Why am I afraid of X, Y, and Z? But then brainstorming for solutions is where the magic begins. You know, that's where the magic happens.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
And so thinking about how this can help people, right? That this can be any kind of transformation in their life. It can be anything like helping people struggling with an illness or grief or going through recovery. Are there any like examples or anything that, you know, you've been teaching this? Is there anything that you think you would like to share that might be an example of how this helped people?
Well, in a very practical way, and I don't want to give too much information here because I don't want to identify anybody.
Right, but in a general way.
I had a participant who could not communicate with their adult child about a very specific issue.
Topic,
very specific and very important topic. Mm-hmm. And what I felt was my more simplistic sort of method of writing and tip for writing, something that was I almost didn't bring it into the workshop because it was so easy and simplistic. And I had kind of borrowed it from a poet friend of mine. And I get an email from this person saying, this is it. This has opened up the communication
Just
channels.
a very simple thing that you shared.
They both did it, the
parent and the child. And the child
both
did it. Okay.
They exchanged it across coast, East Coast, West Coast, and it opened up this way to both express how they were feeling. Both gave them a way to talk about what was going on with the parent.
Yeah.
And Christmas Eve, in fact, he said, you know, because it was actually during the pandemic, so there couldn't be in-person visits, and they just used this strategy to have this
to bridge the gap. Oh my goodness, that's beautiful. That's a beautiful story.
It was a wonderful email to get.
Gosh, yes.
It was really great. And then I had another younger student in an in-person workshop pre-pandemic, and it was a lovely group. And she was young, but she was on round 2 of being caregiver for a parent, very ill parent. So she came in on week 2 and she said, I used to be so bored sitting in the hospital, just walking around, you know, waiting for my dad to have his treatments. Right. This is it. Like, I can pass the time, and it opened this whole new world, and I feel much calmer when I go to pick him up.
Yeah.
And I have, at a minimum, I have something to do.
Right.
And she was
therapeutic at the same time.
But she was very happy.
Yeah.
You know, so
that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, it was wonderful to hear that.
Yeah, you know, and I can tell because I could see the light in you now that you're talking about your role as a teacher and sharing this. And I imagine that you learn a lot from your students as well.
Oh, of course. You know, you learn how individual we all are, and you'll learn differently from how I learn. And, you know, I've learned as well, especially during the pandemic, because all classes had to go online, but in person as well, the participant you think is very disengaged and like, writing, kind of roll the eyes. Yeah. You know, that's not the disengaged student.
No?
They're just comfortable with a one-on-one. Oh. So I always stay around for about 15 minutes afterwards so that I'm available one-on-one.
Right.
Or via an email. That's their way of communicating. They're much more comfortable with that.
Yeah.
So I've stopped thinking, oh gosh, did I say something wrong? Am I not interesting? Do I speak too softly? Which I do. But don't assume, I've learned to not assume that the student checking their phone or sort of doodling is disengaged. They're not. They're often not.
They just need their own way of engaging with you, which might be similar to you with being alone, you know, needing that as the way to express themselves and to learn to express themselves and find their authentic self.
And they may be processing the information differently. You know, they may be listening, taking notes, but the processing happens at home on their own. And that's a great thing to learn.
Yeah.
You know,
yeah, definitely, about what's right for them.
Correct.
Because it's not for everybody else. It doesn't mean it is. So,
and that's your job as a teacher. That's your job as a workshop leader, is to make people feel emotionally safe, make them feel equal. I don't care what their status is outside of the workshop. I don't care if they're, you know, the president, you know, I don't care what their life status is or how far along they are on the writing journey. It's none of my business, frankly. In my room, whether it's virtual or real, they need to feel emotionally safe. they need to feel seen, and they need to have their style of learning and their style of processing honored.
Honored, yes. Yeah. That's the difference right there. Yes. So thank you. Let's talk about your books too, because you've published 5 books.
Thank you.
Everything ranging from novels to Irish history, a teaching guide. You've got. Can you share a little bit about the writing and any themes that you've had there?
My fiction often is about place. Which I suppose for an immigrant I shouldn't be surprised at.
Right.
I have 2 novels out, and then I just had a book come out in March, a collection of short stories, and that short stories, they're all about place in one way or another, and finding our place. And that quote from the author Josephine Hart about she talks about the geography of the soul, and we search for its outlines all our lives, unquote. I'm kind of obsessed with that notion of place and home. Yeah. And it shows up in both my nonfiction and my fiction writing and my journaling.
Right. So there's this theme, even across the transatlantic journey that you've made, with different places, different cultures, different people. But then there's this theme that runs through it.
Home. What is home? Is it a geographic place? Is it an internal existential place? Mm-hmm. Do my neighbors here in Massachusetts who grew up in our 6th generation Massachusetts, do they feel at home?
Right.
Do they feel more at home than me, a transplant? I don't know.
Right.
I actually don't know. That's why
That's something to write about.
That's something to write about. That's why I have a pen and paper.
That's great. And I do want to talk about one of your books called Being a Writer with a Day Job. Like, where were you when I was writing? That's what I needed back then when I was writing my book and had a day job. Wow. What's that? Do you offer advice? What is that book about?
The book it's been out for a good while now, and it's just how to set your own personal writing mission. I don't say the word goals because we hear goals in the workplace all the time.
Yeah, right.
So I'd rather talk about
sense.
Kind of a mission, like aligning myself with nonprofits for which I've worked all of my life. Right. And I'm a writer with a day job.
Okay.
And I talk about, the first step really is believing that you deserve to write, no matter how busy your life is. And no matter how many family commitments you have, because as you know, many and most of us are balancing family caregiving and commitments with work. Yeah. But you still deserve to write, and you're going to be a better person in those other places. You're a better employee, you're a better parent, you're a better caregiver, you're a better grandparent if you're bringing that
your authentic self
to the place.
Yeah, that totally makes sense.
And then the other thing I talk about in the book is, just the logistics of it. Look at your calendar every month and what are the slots you can pull out of there for writing.
And honor that, I would say.
Totally
keep it and don't say, well, I'm really tired today. I don't feel like it. No. I need to do laundry or something. Because I know that's what I would do, especially if I was feeling writer's block. I would be like, oh, I think I should do the laundry or dusting or something that I would never normally want to do.
Like 10 minutes is better than no minutes.
That's the key there.
Yeah, yes. That's it right there. Like 10 minutes and a little doodling and writing a list is better than not writing at all and blowing it off,
Right.
Because it's like anything, it's like we don't really have to brush our teeth, but it's a lot healthier if we do.
That's right. That's a good analogy.
So.
Thank you.
I look at it that way, like do 10 minutes if that's what you have, stick with 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then it's nice to have the same place, find your own little place that works, like a cafe, a particular armchair, or whatever works for you.
Right, and where you're comfortable.
Yeah, exactly. Where you're mostly yourself.
Right. So if people want to get in touch with you and learn more about what you do and what you teach, how do they find you?
I have an author website. It's my name.
Okay.
Strangely, there was no big competition for that. Áine URL.
We'll put it up on the screen too.
AineGreaney.com.
Might be a challenge to spell. But we'll put it up on the screen.
Great. And then I'm on social media. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Threads. And then I'm out and about as well, especially this time of year when people are getting back into the pattern of their normal lives after summer vacations and school off and whatnot.
Right.
But mainly the website has all of my upcoming kind of.
Right. And I wanted to mention Voices of the Valley, which you'll be at November 1st and 2nd. So you're actually November 2nd, the Sunday spotlight speaker at this event. So do you want to give just a brief description of what you're going to talk about?
Well, I'm really going to talk about something I feel fairly strongly about, which is that the process of writing and being you in the writing matters as much or more than the product and having your name on a bestseller list or whatever. And finding your own personal goal and in the process finding your own narrative voice. Because if you don't have your own narrative voice, which isn't necessarily the same as your speaking voice, then really why bother?
Right.
You know?
Right.
So
you
it's
have to
about
be authentic.
finding your voice
Yeah.
and you doing you.
I
You
love
know,
that.
Not trying to imitate other authors.
Great.
You know,
That's wonderful.
So, yeah,
Thank you. I
I'm
can't
looking
wait.
forward to it, Leah.
Me
Really
too.
looking forward to
I
it.
cannot wait for this because I am going to be in the front row seat when you give that talk because I definitely want to learn more. And if you also want to meet Áine in person, hear her spotlight presentation at Voices of the Valley, all you have to do is go to apollosunrise.com, register for the event. It's free, it's open to the public. You just need to register and then choose your day if you want to come Saturday or Sunday. If you want to come, and if you want to hear Áine, you got to come Sunday. Or you can come both days too. So please check that out online and look up Áine online as well. And join us again here on Rise, Heal, and Grow with Leah M. Hill. We have lots more episodes coming up soon. Thanks.
Great. Thank you.